Okay, I'm a Baal Chov. I just saw a Tosfos. I didn't use this Gemara yesterday, and I have this Gemara. This is it's very, very, very geschmack. Something we've mentioned in the past, but this is an allusion to it. Why Avu de Shmuel was called Avu de Shmuel? Why the father of Shmuel was called the father of Shmuel? So yesterday we were speaking about the gender of this child. In other words, you're going to find an Asufi in the street. You don't know what he is. You don't know what an Asufi is, right? Why would it be in the street? Could be the parent gave it up, right? So we said, if the mother was married, then it's not going to put the child in the street because he'll say the child is the father's kid. Now, so what's the if it's a penuya, if it's an arusa, then you have a problem, right? An arusa, or one who's married but is not living with her husband yet. So if she has a child, that might be explain why a child would be this, put it literally, quote unquote, in the dumpster. And then we said another one. What happens if she's a married woman living with her husband, but her husband's on the road and the husband's not around, right? So the husband's not around, then if she's pregnant, everyone will know the child's a mamzer, and therefore she's apt to go ahead and put the child in the street. So Tosfos here on Ayin Gimel Amid Aleph. We did again just Ayin Gimel Amid Aleph. Yeah. In the middle of the third Tosfos, right underneath the words L'kamon Daf Ayin Hey, L'kamon Daf Ayin Hey, it says V'od Kasha. The Maika Amar Umiyut Shaholchu Baleim Medinas Hayam. A minority have their husbands go overseas. The Hanami Yeshlanu L'Hachshiroi, we can say the child is in fact kosher. The Shema Ba Al Yedei Shem. Maybe he came using the Shem of Mefarish. V'Shimesh, and lived with her. Kiahu Uvda de Avu de Shmuel, like the case of Avu de Shmuel. Shahalach Medinas Hayam. Uba Al Yedei Shem V'Shilish V'Hal Shmuel. So it's possible. So if the Rav Shaya pick on the side, he is goyrus to look at the Sefer of Hilchos Gedolos. And Hilchos Gedolos tells a fascinating story. Definitely bloggable material. This is really a fascinating story. So it seems that he went on a business trip. Avua, he went on a business trip, and lo and behold, a lady propositioned him. And he's saying, "My hi." So he said, "I understand." This lady said, "I understand the language of the birds." And the bird said that from you is going to come a Gavra Rabbah. It's going to come a great person. So what did he do? He used the shame that he knew, and he went back quickly, and he lived with his wife, and Shmuel was born. Now the people knew who went on a business trip, and she was pregnant. So they were wondering about the lineage of this child. So what do we call him? Avua de Shmuel. Be aware. It's beautiful. Be aware that this is Shmuel's father. That's why we don't. He's an Amoyri that appears throughout Shas, and we don't know his name. What's his moniker? Avua de Shmuel. I've said this before in Shir, but this is the allusion to it in the Shas Bavli. It's a quote of Yerushalmi, and Hilchos Gedolos tells the complete story. Fascinating story about why he's called Avua de Shmuel. Okay, today's daf, I have to apologize. I really had a tough day. I don't feel well prepared. So what? We'll
Did it work? It didn't work.
It was one of those days.
Yeah.
Okay. We're on a digression about people believing miyad, and then we digress to an error of one person versus another person, and now 3 lines up. Neman Baal Mekach Loimar. The Baal Mekach is believed to say, the seller is believed to say, Lazeh macharti ulazeh ein macharti. So 2 people are coming, they're holding on to an object, and each one is claiming that you sold it to me, right? So when is he believed? B'medem amurim is bisman shemechu biyadai. That's when the seller still has it in his possession. If the seller still has it in his possession, then he's believed to say, I sold it to this one and not this one. You'll ask, let's look at the one who gave him the money. And the answer is, they both gave him money, one willingly and one against his will. This is the famous Gemara in the beginning of Bab Mitzia, if it sounds familiar, right? That's when he's believing. In other words, this is the of miyad when you believe. Like we got into this because they believe miyad, but if they say that this is my child, but once it has a shema sufi, you're not believed. And then we saw two other places by Nida. We saw, and the Gemara says, "Aval ein mecha biyadai." If they're holding on to it, then ain't an eman. Then he's not believed, because then we assume that he doesn't lend it to mind to remember who he sold it to. Says the Gemara, okay, why don't we just see who gave him the money? Says he took from both of them. One gave willingly and one against his will. I don't know which one. Now, the Dayans believe to say this one was victorious and this one was v'chayev. The medavar mamurim shebalei din amam lefanav. Aval ein balei din amam lefanav ein neman. Says let's look at the settle. You know, if you ever were soicha to win, go to court and beat a ticket, right? On the rare occasion that happens, right? That you bother going. I still have my dream, the one when I won, right? That you have your settle that you won. So let's look at the settle that said you were zeicha, right? That look at it. So it's richa the kriya zechasayu that it was written up. So it's ripped up. Says more who go ahead and judge again. Says more b'shuda the daini. It was the case of shuda the daini. Rashi says it's up to the discretion of the dayan, and Taisu says hefka bes and hefka, famous machlekes. But so therefore, believe when they're in front. After that, then he's not expected to remember. Rav Nachman, there are three who are believed on a bechar. There are three people who are believed on a bechar. Who are they? To say this is the bechar, Elu hein chaya, as we saw, a midwife, Aviv the father, V'imo and a mother. Okay, chaya. When is the chaya believed? La'alter, immediately after the child's born, but after that she's not believed. Imoy ne'emen is called Shiva. She's believed all 7 days, because she's going to be tending with the child 7 days. And the father, La'olam, is always believed. After the 7th day, when he has the bris milah, the father is believed. Tanya, Kasav pasuk yes bechor ben asnua yakir, and we darshan yakir yakirenu la'acherim to be market to others that he is the bechor, right? And he's believed to say he's the bechor. And this linya nachla, Bikan Amr Rabbi Yehuda Neman Adam Laimar Zebini Bechar. This is the Nib Bechar. Ukashem Shnema Laimar Zebini Bechar. Kach Nema Laimar Zeb Ben Gerusha Zeb Ben Chalutza. Chachamim Ein in money is not believed to see that on a Ben Gerusha and Ben Chalutza. On that he is not believed. On Bechar he is believed, but on Ben Gerusha and Ben Chalutza he is not believed. Abishol. Okay, we called it shtuki. What was a shtuki? Is someone who knows the father, doesn't know the mother. The opposite. Knows the mother and doesn't know the father. Doesn't know the father. So Abishol, he called him a beduki. Good. So the Gemara wants to know my beduki. You go ahead and check out the mother, and she says, Likashin Ivalti, I had relations with a kasha v'yasha, menace that she's believed. So he called a shtuki, beduki, meaning you can go ahead and say what the child was. Kiman Rabbi Gamliel, right? Like Rabbi Gamliel, Tanina Chadazimno. We learned it in the beginning of Masechta Kesubis, in the sugya of Bari V'Shema, right? Bari V'Shema. We had a very famous sugya there. Tatnan Haisamil Beres. A woman was pregnant for Amarla. Mativa Shalu Bezer, who's the father? Amarlahem. She says to them, Meish Ploini V'Kayin who. From so and so, and he's a kayin. So he's believed. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer, Oimim Ne'menes. Rabbi Yeshua, Oimim Lomi Pia Nechayim. Right? We don't believe her. Bottom line is, if you do believe, so what's Abishol? What is Abishol adding in this Mishnah that we don't hear from the Mishnah in Kesubis? That the mother is believed to go ahead and say the lineage of this child. So if you're calling a shtuki beduke, it's bedika throughout your mother. That's the same Mishnah that we have in the beginning of Daf Yomi and Masechta Kesubis, with the mother's belief. So what are we getting over here? And for the Gemara, in other words, the mother in Kesubis is believed on herself, that she's not a zona, that she's not a apostle, but she's not believed on the child. Abishol is adding, you even believed on the child. Abishol is adding that what you even believe what on the child. Okay, let's see Rashi. Chodol lahach sheba Rabbi Gamliel deloim behimna ela la'atzma shloim neschal min truma, that she would be able to eat truma if she was what married to a kohen. Avaloi lahach she'oisay uber, but not to be machsha the uber. Shimbasi leitinasi l'kohen, she wouldn't be able to marry kohen. Abishol machsha af bebita. The Masnisan after Vlad Koishu Stuki. Mishnah is even speaking about children Stuki. So that's what Abishol is adding, that you would know from the Mishnah in Kesubis. In Kesubis, you only know the lineage about itself, but not to believe on the child. Here we're adding that you believe on the child. Very good. The Gemara in Kesubis says she's believed on herself but not on the child. Abishol is disagreeing with that. In Kesubis, the one who machshes her, machshe bita. So now, what Abishol mayosel ashmina? What's he adding? In other words, there is an opinion in Gemara in Kesubis that in fact she's believed on the child, just like she's believed to machshe herself. She's able to machshe the child. So what is Abishol adding over the Gemara in Kesubis? It says, and for the Gemara Abishol adifa. Abishol is more adif to Rabbi Gamliel. The ime hasam, if over there the Gemara in Kesubis havamina hasam deroiv kisherim etzla, it can be speaking where roiva kosher etzla. Right? Says Rashi. The ime hasam havamina hani mili heka deroiv kisherim etzla. Going pinuya, she is an unmarried woman. For roiv ha'ir masi and lekahuna, and most of the city is able to marry off to the kahuna. So there's no psulim. That's what I would say back in the Gemara. Where the majority is the city apostle etzla, a maloi tzricha amara. So Abishol is telling me where even if Rova is silly, the city is psulim. Guys, why would Rova city psulim? She's an arusa. She's an arusa, and she's saying that what the child is from the aris, right? Or she's in a pnuya, and most of the city can't marry the kuna. That would be the Roy Vetzla. So Abishol's chiddush is that even in that scenario, you would be believed, and Amarava halacha kabishol. So like the mandi ama in the Masechta Kesubis, that the woman is believed on herself and believed on the child, right? That's only when you have Roiv Kesherim Etzla. Abishol's chiddush is not only is she believed on herself and the child, she's believing herself on the child even when you don't have the Roiv. Even when you don't have the Roiv, that's the chiddush of Abishol. Okay, the next Mishnah, we're going to have three opinions. We're going to have a question on the second opinion, and the rest of the blot is going to have 3 or 4 attempts to explain the second opinion. Okay, that's the daf. Says the Mishnah, Kol hoyisurim l'boy b'kahal, anyone who's asa to come in the kahal, a mamzer, a shtuki, an asufi, right? Anyone is asa to come in the kahal, mutarim lovay zeh b'zeh, right? So let's say, guys, you have a vadai mamzer, a shtuki is only a suffix mamzer, an asufi is only a suffix mamzer. They would be able to marry each other. Again, a vadai mamzer can't come into kahal. A shtuki can't come into the kahal. Again, that's just a shtuki is the mother is, the father is. It could be a father's a mamzer, so it's a suffix mamzer. They can marry each other. Kol sasum love, because why? Because both of them cannot marry into kahal Hashem. Both of them can marry. One midrabanon, we saw yesterday, a mila we made by what? By shtuki, but nonetheless, they would be able to marry each other. So so we're speaking about shtukim, asufim, mamzerim, nesinim. What? Okay, according to one opinion, kutim. But Rabbi Yehuda says it's aser. Now, the Gemara is going to explain what exactly is Rabbi Yehuda going on. Why should it be aser? Why should it be aser? Now, I can tell you a reason it should be aser. It's the next opinion. Maybe the shtukis are finding a kasha v'yasha dika yid. Maybe the asufi is a kasha v'yasha. Good. We're not sure, but Ken Zayin that. So therefore, maybe what? Maybe I won't let them marry the vadai mamzer. So that would be great if the next person to speak up, to step up to the plate, so to say, says that. So if the next person saying that, Rabbi Yehuda is not saying that. So the question the Gemara is going to struggle with is, what does Rabbi Yehuda mean? Guys, that's the setup for the Gemara. That's the setup for the Gemara. So the first one says a suffix can go ahead and marry a vadai, meaning a mamzer that's a vadai can marry a suffix, a shtuki. Great. Says Rabbi Yehuda, it's asa. What's asa? The Gemara is going to explain. Now, what you would say it's asa for the vadai to marry the suffix, right? Good. Rabbi Eliezer Omer or Rabbi Elazar Omer, vadai bevadai mutar, vadai besuffix. Take out the next words. Besveika yasa. Great. So Memela, if Rabbi Elazar is the one who introduced vadai and suffix, not Rabbi Yehuda didn't. Hi guys, you good? Guys, you hear the setup. I mean, once you get the setup, the Gemara will go perhaps a little easier. Good. Rabbi Yehuda can't be speaking about this because Rabbi Elazar is speaking about this. So clearly, the Elohein Sveikai Shtuki Asufi Vikuti. Now, what's the svara of Rabbi what? Of Rabbi Elazar? It's a great svara, guys. It's a great svara. Any suffix could be kosher. So even if you have two sfukim, a shtuki and a sufi would not be able to marry each other because maybe one is a mamzer and one's not. Once you have that possibility of kashrus, we won't let it go through. That's Rebbe Elazar, and the Tanakh says no, that a shtuki, a vadai mamzer can't marry a suffix, and we don't know what Rabbi Yehuda is talking about. That's the setup. Says the Mishnah, says the Gemara. My kol surim lovay b'kahal. What does it mean? The statement, anyone who's lovay b'kahal, ilema mamzeri nisini. Those are the gevonim. Shtuki vesufi, atanal aresha, mamza v'nesini, shtuki vesufi, mitarim love is ebezeh. In other words, we did that already. Been there, done that. That's that's one thing. Okay. In other words, so if it's the way I touched it, there'll be no reason to say it because we said it already. The su, in addition, now the Rabbi Yehuda problem. The su Rabbi Yehuda Oiser ahei. On what is Rabbi Yehuda saying aser? If you mean to tell me on he's arguing about the vadai and the suffix, the shtuki marrying the mamzer, Hamidiktani Sefer Rebbe Elazar Omer vadai bevadai muta vadai besveikin and sveikin besveikin asa Michal Rebbe Yehuda le svirale. Michal Rebbe Yehuda does not hold that way, or else Rebbe Elazar won't be talking. Beautiful setup. Okay, guys, two kashas. One. The first statement is redundant if you're talking about a suffix of vadai, and secondly, what in the world is Rabbi Yehuda talking about? If he's speaking about suffix vadai, right, then he can't. It's not possible because Rabbi Elazar is the one who's speaking about suffix vadai. V'chi tema. If you'll say the following, Rabbi Yehuda oiser ager b'mamzeres. Okay, we saw a machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda, guys. Yesterday's Gemara. Rabbi Yossi says ager is not mikri kahal. Therefore, they can marry a mamza. What did Rabbi Yehuda say? Remember, you had the sheet, the chart with the 5. He said, what? You could marry a mamza. Why? You can't marry a mamza. Why? Because ikri kahal. You call kahal. So, in other words, the Tanakama must have said that you could marry a mamza. Rabbi Yehuda oiser, and Rabbi Yehuda says you can't marry a mamza. But look at the Mishnah. If Rabbi Yehuda is replying to the words of the Tanakama, where do we have what the hint of speaking about Geiris? It's speaking about Kol Asurim Lovei B'Kahal. You know, so now, V'chi Tema Rabbi Yehuda Oiser Ager B'Mamzeres Midi Ger B'Mamzeres Ketani Kol Asurim Lovei B'Kahal Ketani. We're speaking right, and a ger is not us, guys. A ger can marry the Kal Hashem. Yeah. So let's go to the Mishnah now. Let's go to the Mishnah with the problems. Who's that? Mamza, Nesinim, Shtukim, Asufim, all can't marry in the Kal Hashem. Mutta lovim b'zeh. They can marry each other. I sama vada, I sama suffix. I don't care. I got a vada mamza. I got a suffix, a sufi. I don't care. Rabbi Yehuda Oiser. Rabbi Yehuda says it's awesome. Right now, we got a problem. We already learned this din. That the asufim and all these things, we already stated previously that they're permitted to each other. So why is the Mishnah repeating that? Sveitens. Rabbi Yehuda Oiser on what? On that din? Meaning, Rabbi Yehuda says it's asa for a suffix to marry a vadai. Comes along Rabbi Elazar and says it's asa for a suffix to marry a vadai. So he's repeating Rabbi Yehuda? So now let's suggest what? Rabbi Yehuda is going with his classic psak that a ger cannot marry a mamza. But where did anyone say anything before that a ger could marry a mamza, that he's commenting on that? So we're stuck now with Pashit Pshat in the Mishnah. What is Pshat in the Mishnah? That's what we're holding right now. Okay? So I'm Rav Yehuda, Rav Yehuda, the Amor Rav Yehuda now is going to attempt to go ahead and say Pshat in the Mishnah. Guys, we're going to have 3 attempts in the try to get Pshat in the Mishnah, and eventually we'll have some success, but not in any way that you would have thought about. Okay? So here's the Pshat. Hachi Kamar. Hachi Kamar means here is the explanation of the first line of the Mishnah. When it says Kol Asur, now we said Kol Asurim Love B'Kahal. What do we mean, guys? Klal Kahuna or Klal Yisrael? Say Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael, right? That's your mistake. In other words, we're going to change that. We don't mean Klal Yisrael. We mean Kahal, Kahuna. No, there's different yichus. There's yichus for Klal Yisrael, and then there's yichus. Well, where a cholol is able to marry, it's not a problem. Cholol, Kidushin, not a problem. Alman is not a problem. These are all kahuna problems, right? But then, so says the Amoira Rav Yehuda. Here's Pshat na Mishnah. Kol ha'isurim love b'kahal kahuna. Anyone who's asa to come to kal kahuna, right? And man ninu, who can't marry into the kahuna? Ki yoires. Okay, guys. So right now you got a Pshat, yeah. Rabbi Yehuda is going to be referring to Giyar. Can a Giyaris marry into the Kuna? No. Right? No, can, yeah? So now, very good. I just introduced Ger, and now it makes sense. Now, he throws in a wrench over here. What does he say? Less than 3 years old. Now, what's the difference between 3 years old and less? Is that a girl, her basulim will grow back. Her bia is not a bia less than 3. So let's say, what's the din of a Giyoris? Can a Giyoris, is the reason a Giyoris can't marry a Kohen because it's Psul Zaina? Well, no, she's a Giyoris and it's irrelevant. It doesn't make a difference. So our Mishnah is speaking, it's irrelevant. Even less than 3 where her bia is not a bia. So if her bia is not a bia, she's not a zona, right? Therefore what? Right? That would be Pshat na Mishnah, Reb Shimon ben Yochai, who says mutarim lavai zebezeh, that what? That if she, Shimon ben Yochai is of the opinion that if she is less than 3, then she would be mutter to go ahead what and marry, right? Right? That the ger would be able to marry into kahuna if she's less than what? If she's less than 3, and we're not saying like that. Okay, let's see Rashi, guys. This is the Okimta in the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Chikamar, Kloimar. La'olam Rabbi Yehuda ager b'mamzeres koi. Rabbi Yehuda said his usher is taka going on ger mamzeres. The shoma la'alei l'tanakama. He heard that the Tanakama, the Ariba, was speaking about gerim. V'hai b'kahal d'ka'omar. When it says kahal, it doesn't mean kahal Yisrael. It means kahal kahunahu. The koyin asa b'giyoris. Va'afilu b'chusami bas gimel shanim. The lav bas biyahi. Ve'ein sham mishum chshas nus. So now, go back to the Mishnah, guys. Go back to the Mishnah. Anyone who's asa to marry into the kahuna, such as what? A giyares who's less than 3 years old. Mutarim lavai zebezeh is permitted. What? Is permitted lavai zebezeh. She's permitted to marry, right? Permitted to marry a mamza. Permitted to marry a Svuke and Shtuki, yeah. Rabbi Yehuda Isa, Rabbi Yehuda asks the ger to marry Mamzeres because he said Kahal. So now I got a pshat. Now the Gemara's guy. Why do we have to get involved with the 3 years old? Not 3 years old. Say Stamazoi. And then Fred the Gemara Kasha back in the Gemara, right? Says the Gemara V'nukmi b'shalosh shana v'yamechad v'afil Reb Shimon. Why can't you be speaking about 3 years old and then it'll be even like Reb Shimon? It's going to be broken within itself. How's it broken within itself? Elataima is the reason why she can't marry a kohen. The bashalash shana v'yamechad. Mashma then, again, guys, if we're going to say it's speaking about a girl who's 3 years old, what's the inference? That if she was less than 3, she could marry a kohen. Correct? So what's the inference? Hapchusim bashalash shana v'yamechad. The muteres lavai b'kahal kahuna. Asura lavai zebezeh. That she be mutter to marry b'kal kahuna would be asa to go ahead and asa to she be asa muteres lavai kahuna Asura lavai zeh bezeh. So again, if she's less than 3, she'd be mutter to marry into kahuna. Asura lavai zeh bezeh, be also to marry each other. V'zein enoch. It's not correct. Why? She is permitted to marry kahuna. And what? And she be mutter to marry each other. So therefore, why the head of the Giyaris of Shalosh Shanim of Bishari Surim? So the Tanakama says a Giyaris is not Bechal. In other words, there's never any way she's going to be mutter zelazeh. Guys, the diak is the following: if she's older than 3, not yet less than 3, she can marry a kohen, right? And she can marry a kohen, but that is not true according to the Tanakama, right? The Tanakama, so Giyaris, according to the Tanakama, a Giyaris could marry a mamza, and according to so that would be correct. Muteris lova izeh bezeh. Well, this is what I tell you. I wasn't. This is where I got a little stuck. Let's see Rashi. Im Kain, the Reb Shimon mutukmis, the b'chusa muteris lekahuna, v'hu hiter lavoi b'mamzeres, ela asur lavoi b'kahuna. Now, who can marry a mamzeres? Someone who is asa to marry a kohen. In other words, asa lavoi zebezeh bitmia. He b'mamzeh umamzeh ba b'giyores the kivin the kahal gerim lav kahalhu. It doesn't make a difference when she's older or younger. Okay, here's the upshot, guys. It's mashma the following, fellas. If she's older than 3 years old, that's the reason you'd say she can't marry a kohen, and therefore she can't marry a mamza. Therefore she can't marry a mamza. Therefore she could marry a mamza. But the truth is, even if she's less than 3 and marry a kohen, she still can marry a mamza. She's a giyaris. Your statement would be, well, if she's less than 3 and marrying a kohen, she should be able to marry a mamza, correct? But it's not true, because even if she's mutter to marry a kohen, less than 3, she'd be permitted to marry a mamza, which is not true. So therefore, let's go through it one more time. Okay, if you're telling me it's speaking that about a child that's 3 years old, mitzi the tavra elataima the bash, but elataima the reason why she can't marry a kohen the bashal shana be a mechad. If she's less than 3, muteris lavi b'kahal. Now she's permitted to marry a kohen. Guys, less than 3. She's a giyaris. She could marry a kohen, correct? Asur lavi zeh bezeh should be asa to marry what, a mamza. And is permitted to marry a mamza. One more time. Look, listen to the diak. Here's the way we learn the Mishnah. Kol asurim lavi b'kahal kuhuna, meaning a giyaris that's 3 years old and older. Muteris lavi zebezeh is permitted to marry a mamza. What happens if she's less than 3 years old? Then she can marry a kohen and she'd be asa to marry a mamza. But that's not true. She's still mutter to marry a mamza even when she's less than 3. Therefore, that can't be the pshat in the Mishnah, and therefore we have to say it's speaking about what? Someone who is less than 3 years old. Okay, says the Gemara Vaita. For Klalahu, you're telling me this is a good rule, that your pshat is a good pshat? The Chola Asurim Lovei B'Kahal Kahuna. Anyone who is asa to marry a kohen, Mutarun Lovei Zeh B'Zeh, can marry a mamza? Guys, again, this is the rule of thumb. Mutar asa l'kohen, mutar l'mamza. That's what you have to understand the sugya. Asa l'kohen, mutar l'mamza. Good. That was the last problem. She was mutar l'kohen and still asa to a mamza. Right? Says the Gemara. Bari almana ugarusha the chalala. A kohen can marry. Kohen gadol can marry almana. A kohen can marry garusha. A kohen can marry a chalala. The zayna, or a woman had relations with a guy that a kohen can marry. Can they marry a mamza, guys? Can they marry a mamza? No. The asurim lovei b'kahal kahuna, v'asurim lovei zeh b'zeh.
So your rule, your formula doesn't work. If your formula is that you're asa to a kohen, you're mutter to a mamza, I just gave you a bunch of cases, asa to a kohen and asa to a mamza. All of those. No, it's still. No, again, that's according to one das. Again, it's according to one das. We're speaking about that are clearly all these cases are people who are asa to a kohen, people who are asa to a kohen, and that's subject to machlokes tanoim, whether less than 3 is mutter. The su hamutta v'asar, right? Mutta v'asar. What does that mean? Rashi midalei hita love b'mamzeres ela asures lekahanim. That you matter to marry a mamzeres, someone who's us to a kohen, mashma if you mutter b'kahal kahuna, you'll be asa to a mamzeres. Ger shemutter b'kohenes, a ger is mutter to marry a kohenes. A ger can marry a kohenes, not a problem. Umutter b'mamzeres, and a ger is mutter b'mamzeres. In other words, let's invert a rule. So if it was mutter to a kohenes, it should be what? It should be asa to a mamza. Over here we say it's mutter to a kohen, it's a mutter to a mamza. Ella, guess you know what that we just did, guys? We just destroyed that pshat. So back to square one. What's pshat in our Mishnah? The dialogue between the Tanakama and Reb Yehuda. It can't be the dialogue we just spoke about because it doesn't work. Next. Next case. Ella Amrav Nasim Barashia Hachi Kamar. Kol Sheha Koyen Asa Lisa Es Bitoy. Anyone that a Koyen would not be able to marry the daughter. Umayniu, what would that be? Ger Shenasa Giyoris Uchadrev Eliezer ben Yaakov, who we're going to meet in the Mishnah on Daf Ayin Zayin. A Koyen would not be able to marry the offspring of a Ger and a Giyoris. They had, right? That child will be able to marry a mamza. Says him Klalahu. The kol she'akoyin asa lisa es bitoy mutarm love is ebezek marry a mamza. Hari chalol shenasa bas Yisrael. A chalol marries a bas Yisrael. The koyin asa lisa bitoy. So guys, a chalol, a ben gerusha, marries a Yisrael. Can the koyin marry the child? No. Can the child marry a mamza? No, but what's your rule of thumb? Also, mamza. So again, we have a problem. Again, once you got that formula down, the Gemara goes nice, right? Once you got that formula down, the Gemara goes nice. So yeah, I'm giving you a case of someone who can't marry a kohen and can't marry a mamza. What's again the case? A gyaris marries a ger. They have a child, can't marry a kohen according to this opinion. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and also can't marry a mamza because it's a kal Hashem. Says more like Kasha. Reb Destoy ben Yehuda. It's like Reb Destoy ben Yehuda. That child could marry a kohen. Guys, remember we have Rabbi Destoy. He's one says that the woman's womb is metaher the child, right? The chalala. This woman has the ability to purify. A bas Yisrael can purify. So so she's mutter to a kohen. She's in other words, this is according to the opinion that if a ger would go ahead and marry a Yisrael, this would go ahead and it would matter. The child, the chalal that marries a bas Yisrael, the chalal will be a full-fledged Jew. So it's mutter to a kohen. By chalal shnasa chalala, the kohen asa lisa bitoy. A chalal marries a chalala. A ben gerusha marries a bas gerusha, and the child can marry a kohen. Vasanami lovay b'zevzev, right? Can marry a mamza. V'su a mutter mashma, but the mutter would be asa to marry. Vari ger shnasa bas Yisrael, the kohen mutter lisa bitoy. Mutar lovay b'zevzev, and a ger marries a bas Yisrael. A kohen is mutter to marry his daughter, and the ger is mutter to marry a mamza. El Omer of Nachman. So therefore, we're stuck again. What's pshat in our Mishnah? El Omer of Nachman Omer Rabbi Baravua Hacha Mamza me'achoisei Mamza me'eshes ish ikabinayu. Okay, outside guys, let's give me Gemara outside. We had a machlokes mem tes and Gemara Yavamis. What is a mamza? What is a mamza? We all know by now that what the English vernacular calls a mamzer is not a mamzer, right? That's a child born out of wedlock. And Bismana said it doesn't exist anymore. There's no such thing as a wedlock because people don't have marriages anymore. They just have girlfriends, right? And they have children and they're not embarrassed. But Rabbi Akiva is the most machmir. Says Rabbi Akiva, that Kidushin is not toifus by chayve lavim. Therefore, any chayve lavim, the child will be a mamza. We have the Shimon HaTimnani, who we paskin like, the chayve krisus. Chayve krisus, that the union has to be chayve krisus at least. Rabbi Yeshua is the most mekel. He says even chayve krisus would not be a mamza. Only chayve mises bezdin would be a mamza. So, for example, if a man would have a child with his sister, that's a chayv karis. Loit Rav Shimon HaTimnani, the child would be a mamzer. Loit Rabbi Yeshua, the child would not be a mamzer. But everyone will be moided that a child born from an Eishes Ish, since an Eishes Ish carries the death penalty with it, Chiyav Mises Bezdin, the child would be a mamzer. So we're going to stick this pshat in the Mishnah. We're going to stick this pshat in the Mishnah. Okay? Now, let's look at the first wide line in Rashi. It could be Nayu, first wide line in Rashi. It could be Nayu. Lav beger ifligu. The machloikis between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda. Until now, we thought it was Gerim Mamzeres, whether it's Lavik or not. We're leaving that. We're leaving that. We're leaving that. The Kasaba Yesh Mamze Michaybe Krisis. The Tanakama says for Chaybe Krisis, there's a Mamzeres. V'hachi Kamar. And here's the way you read the Mishnah. Kol ha-noiladim me'isure erva. Anyone who is born as the result of an Issa of Arayos, Mamzerim Heim, Umutarim Lavai Zebezeh, and they can marry Mamzerim, and they can marry Shtukim, and they can marry Asufim. Hani Chayve Krisis, B'mnei Chayve Mises Kegain, Eisheshis, the Kula Mamzerim Heim, Rabbi Yehuda Oisa Lavai Chayve Krisis, B'mnei Chayve Mises, the Kasava a Mamzer Elam Chayve Misais. So here's the way you read the Mishnah, guys. Kol asurim lovay bekal mutarim lovay zebezeh. They're mamzerim, whether they're from chayve mises or chayve krisos, they're permitted to come and marry with each other. Comes like Rabbi Yehuda says no. Comes like Rabbi Yehuda, since you only have mamzerim from chayve mises, you wouldn't permit a chayve krisos to marry chayve mises because the chayve krisos is not a mamzer, right? So Rabbi Yehuda would asa chayve krisis to marry chayve mises. Really, ikachasim in aseifa. It really is. It's like I think Avi was bothered by this. You're really sticking in. Again, it's because of the kasha. It's a shveri kasha. It's a shveri kasha. Like what is arguing on? So guys, listen. You see in learning, you see it's like we're fitting in the. It's a formula. The Mishnah says beautifully. Says the Mishnah that says kol. Says the Mishnah kol isurim lovei b'kahal. So that's a mamzer. Which mamzer are we speaking about? Whether it's a mamzer from a sister, which is krisus, whether it's a mamzer from Eishes Ish, Mrs. Bezdin. But lav dafka, guys. It doesn't mean sister and those are just two illustrations. Any chayve karis or any chayve Mrs. Bezdin, right, would be permitted to marry each other because they're both mamzerim. Says Rabbi Yehuda, it's asa. What's asa? I'm answering chayve krisus to chayve Mrs. Why? Because I hold chayve krisus is not mamzeris. Only chayve Mrs. Bezdin, I hold like Rabbi Yeshua. And now let's see it in the Gemara. I just foreshadowed you the Gemara. Says the Gemara now. Elo Omer of Nachman, Omer Rabbi Avua, Hocham Mamze Me'achosai, Umamze Me'eshes Ish Ikabinayu. Kanakam is Savar, Afilu Mamze Me'achosai Nami Havi Mamzer. Even from Chayve Krisis is a Mamzer. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, no. Me'eshes Ish from Chayve Mises Havi Mamzer. Me'achosai Havi Mamzer. My Kamash Malon Fred Gemara. So what's the Chiddush? Tanino, we know that. We had this machlokas previously. Just like we asked the question on the Amid Aleph, we had machlokas by Bari V'Shema on Kidushin on Ksubas Yud Gimel. We have this in Yavamis Memtes, right? What's a mamza? Kol shu b'lo yavai. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Anything lo yavai is allowed. Rabbi Akiva. Shimon HaTimnani. I mean, kol shechayv lo kares b'dei shemayim. The halach kedvarav adds the halachas like him. And Rabbi Yeshua I know kol shechayv lo mises bezdin. So we got a problem. It fits in pshat in the Mishnah, but why tell it to me? Like yes by Abba Shol. What are you coming to tell me? So you stuck up shot in the Mishnah that makes sense. As doichik as it is, you stuck it in, it makes sense. But we know it. We know it. We know it from where? From Memtes in Yavamis. So we're back to another Ella, guys. So we're back to square one. El Amma Rava Ger Amoini Umay Avi Ikabinayu. A ger from Ammon Umoiv Ikabinayu. So notice we know that a mamzer can't come b'kal Hashem. We know a ger from Ammon can't come from Hashem, and you know from Moav can't. Now, be aware, fellas, if they're Megayer, they're Jews, if they just can't marry Kal Hashem. Adarabba, if they're not Megaya, they're Goyim. It's Dafka said when they are Megaya. It's Dafka said when they are Megaya, or else they're Goyim if they're not Megaya. So Lo Yavoy Amunu Moy B'Kal Hashem is when they're Megaya, because they're not Megaya, they're Goyim. So Kol Yisurim Lovay B'Kal Umay Ninu Ger Amoini Umayavi Mutare Lovay Zeh B'Zeh. They're able to marry Ihachi. So my Rabbi, if that's the pshat, my Rabbi Yehuda Isar. Why would Rabbi Yehuda say it's Asa? Hachi Kama. Afa Pish Rabbi Yehuda Isar Ger B'Mamzeres. Even though Rabbi Yehuda asks a Ger B'Mamzeres, right? Hani Mili Ger Deroi Lovay B'Kahal. Aval Ger Amoini My Avi Dein Roi Lovay B'Kahal Loi. Guys, it's one statement of the Tana. We read it as one statement. Go back to the Mishnah, guys, on the Yom Aleph. This is the final shot. No machlokes whatsoever. Let's go. I'm going to stick it in the Mishnah. Go back to the Mishnah. Let's stick in the final shot. Kol asurim lovi b'kahal. Any ger from Amoin and Moav that is asat that is asat to come to Kal Hashem mutarim lovoi zeh b'zeh, and are permitted to go ahead and marry each other. So a ger from Ammon and a ger from Moab could marry each other. Why? Because they're not called. They're no. I'm saying that they're Giorim, but they can't marry the Kahal. Rabbi Yehuda Oiser, and even Rabbi Yehuda, who asks a ger from marrying in Mamzeris, would permit a ger from Ammon and Moab to marry because they're not called Kahal. So it's one statement. So beautiful. Rabbi Yehuda asked what? Rabbi Yehuda asks in other scenarios because he says ger kal gerim ikri kahal, and therefore a ger can't marry a mamza, as we said yesterday. Would be moida by Ammon and Moab. That ger could marry him, and that's the final pshat. Have a great day.